Hi, welcome back to Coping with COVID-19. Today's lesson is number 4, and I'm going to be talking all about how thoughts are not facts. So, in order to understand this concept, we're going to be talking a little bit about cognitive fusion and diffusion. And then the coping skill for today is going to be noticing thoughts. So let's get started. Okay, before we start the main portion of today, I'm going to ask you to just take a moment to notice where are you on the ladder right now. Just take a moment to notice your body and notice if you're at the top of the ladder. Maybe you're feeling safe and connected and social. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle where you feel a bit agitated, anxious, frustrated, maybe a little bit of fight or flight going on. And then notice if you're down at the ladder, feeling numb and collapsed, maybe frozen and shut down, like you can't get much done. So just take a moment to notice and name where you are on the ladder, and you might take down some notes, noticing the sensations in your body, the thoughts that come to mind, any feelings you're noticing, and any urges you have to maybe perform a particular behavior, maybe an urge for this to hurry along so you can get to the next thing on your to-do list. So just notice and name what's happening. Okay, and now we're going to do a little thought experiment. So imagine you're having a good day and the sun is shining and you decide it's time to go for a little run. I'm going to get some exercise. Today is going to be a great day. So you're out taking a run, and in the distance you see someone you know. And so you stop and you wave, hoping that that person will respond. But instead of responding, the person turns and walks away. Take a moment to notice what thoughts come up and write them down. Notice the thoughts that came to your mind. And now we're going to do the same thought experiment, but this time you're a bit agitated. You woke up and you looked at the news and you realize all the increasing cases of the coronavirus, and you're just in fight or flight. So you think, I'm going to go out for a run to see if that can help me. So off you go for a run, and the same thing happens. In the distance, you see somebody you know. And you stop and you wave, and the same thing happens. The person doesn't see or doesn't notice, turns and walks away. Now, what types of thoughts are running through your mind in this scenario? So take a moment to notice and name and write those thoughts down. So, what did we notice with this exercise? Usually I do this exercise in a group of people, and I ask them to share the thoughts that they had, and we write them down on a board. And what I noticed with each class is that we all experienced the same thing. We all were outside running, we all waved, and we all got no response. But what we notice is that the people report very different types of thoughts. And I've put them in kind of categories that I'll walk through right now. Some people experience this as they don't like me, right? They have thoughts like, this person must not like me, what's wrong with me, why didn't they wave at me? They kind of internalize it that it's all about them and what's happening with themselves. Other people project it outward and they're angry at the person and they say, what a jerk, why didn't they notice me? I can't believe that they didn't respond, right? So they have that type of reaction. Then other people have this, well, maybe the person just didn't see me. Maybe they were caught up in their own thing and they were just doing their own thing at the moment and they just didn't simply see me. And other people then think, well, yeah, maybe they're having a hard time. Maybe they're upset. Maybe they're down the ladder. So you notice that we have all these different thoughts. And it could also be that you have these different thoughts all at the same time, right? So you might yourself notice that you have many different thoughts about the same situation. And you can also notice that you might have these thoughts, they might be different thoughts depending on what's happened. So the first scenario where you were in a good mood up the ladder, you might have just not had many difficult thoughts at all. You just thought, oh, okay, they didn't see me. But when we went to the scenario about you were down the ladder and you were in a very bad mood, then the thoughts might have been very different. So even the same setting, depending on your mood, has different outcomes as far as thoughts. So what can we interpret about this scenario? which thoughts were true. So what we conclude is that thoughts are not always facts, and we have very little influence over what we actually think. So we're going to do another thought experiment to bring this idea to focus. Whatever you do, don't think about the next thing I'm about to show you. So I really want you to focus on not thinking about a pink elephant. Get it out of your mind. Don't think about it. Push it away. See if you can do that right now. So, were you able to do it? I'm thinking no, because our minds create thoughts automatically. But you might argue with me and say, but hold on a second. My mind might be creating these thoughts automatically. But what if these thoughts are true? What if these thoughts about myself, for example, are actually true? So what we say in ACT is we don't really want to argue whether or not the thoughts are true or false or right or wrong. But we want people to ask themselves, if I let this thought guide me in my actions and in my behaviors, is this a helpful thing to do? So is this a helpful thought or not? So I'm going to make it really black and white and give you an example of how I would ask you to approach this. So let's just say you have the thought, I should stay home to prevent myself from getting the coronavirus. This might be true or false, right or wrong. We don't actually know. However, this thought is helpful right now considering we're in the middle of a pandemic. So if you were to realize that staying home right now could actually be a change in your behavior that might protect you and keep you safe. So in this case, we call this thought helpful or workable. So this is something that we want this thought to guide us in our actions. Now, you might also say, on the other hand, well, the media says I'll get this virus anyway, so why should I bother trying to avoid it? Maybe I should just go about living my life. Yeah, this might be a true thought, might be true or false, right or wrong, who's to say? However, in this case, this thought might be unhelpful because it might lead you, if you let it guide you in your actions, to putting yourself at risk. It might lead you to do things that put you more at risk. So remember, we don't know if it's right or wrong, good or bad, but we're looking to see about the workability and whether or not it's helpful. So you'll see my diagram here again. Notice that the thoughts have a direct line to the behavior. And notice how we're talking about many of these thoughts being outside of your control. However, whether they're true or untrue, what you do in the face of these thoughts are what matter. Okay, you'll remember the last time we talked about the things that are in your control. So in the face of this pandemic, what you do, how you physically distance, how you engage with friends, how you spend free time, how you cope with thoughts and feelings, and how you take care of yourself, those things are helpful for you right now. And those are the things that you can control. And you may say to me, well, hold on a second, all these other things, these thoughts, I can't help it. These thoughts keep coming to my mind. They just keep coming back. I'm focusing on these things, but these thoughts, they keep coming back into my mind. So what am I supposed to do about that? So let's talk about a concept which we call hooking and unhooking. And we're going to walk you through this. And we're going to imagine your thoughts, your mind is like a train. Okay? And your mind has all sorts of thought trains. Picks up thoughts as you go. Like, this is a disaster. I can't cope. Oh no. Why is everyone else coping so much better than me? Oh, I must be such a loser. Okay, so this is an example of a thought train that leads us to get tangled or caught up in our thoughts. And we call this cognitive fusion. And in ACT, we just simplify that to being hooked. So you're hooked by these sticky thoughts. And if we ride this thought train, it will direct our behaviors and it can guide us in ways that sometimes are very negative. So we want to learn skills on how to slow down the train and unhook. So we're going to do another thought experiment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to think of a thought right now, and I've put I can't cope, but you might have another thought. Think of a thought right now that you're having. See if you can get all tangled in it. Just let your thought train get started. So grab a thought and really focus on it and see what happens when you get all caught up. Keep thinking about it. Keep thinking about this thought, getting all tangled and hooked and caught up by it. And now I want you to say this thought out loud. So in my case, I will say, I can't cope. And notice what happens when you say it out loud. And the next thing I'm going to ask you to do is to now say out loud, I notice the thought, I can't cope. And in your case, you're going to replace it with your thought. I notice the thought, blank. And did you notice any distance from this thought? Did it change your experience with this thought? It might have, it might not have. So we're just experimenting here. Now I'm going to ask you to take another step. And what I want you to do is to say to yourself, say out loud, I notice I'm having the thought, I can't cope. And then you're going to replace it with your thought. I notice I'm having the thought, blank. Did you notice a difference between when you were hooked and now possibly being unhooked, or what we call cognitive diffusion? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. This is just one of the techniques that I teach my clients to experiment with. So I invite you to also experiment with what it would be like to replace in front of what you're thinking, I notice I'm having the thought, I can't cope, or I can't whatever it may be. Now, you'll notice in this picture, we have a bubble of the person noticing. And this is what we call the observing self. So this is the part of your mind that's able to actually observe what you're doing or what you're thinking. And this is an important concept that we're going to come back to later in the course, but I just wanted to introduce it for today. So you have you off to the left, and then you have the thought bubble of you observing the you, and that's called the observing self. So what I invite you to do over the coming days is to each time you have a thought that's difficult, I want you to see if you can write down for yourself on a card, I notice I'm having the thought. And then on the back of the card, I want you to write down all the sticky thoughts. So it could be that you create a story around it. For example, I could create the story, I can't cope. And in that, I might have all the thoughts that come up, like I'm a loser, why can't I cope, this is so terrible, what's wrong with me? I'd have that on one side of the card. And then on the other side, you would write, I notice I'm having the thought. And then each time this story comes up, you pull out the card and you notice I'm having the thought. So you want to practice this over and over again and see what happens. See it as an experiment. See if it gives you a little bit of distance, a gap between the thought and the cognitive fusion or the hooking and being unhooked, or that cognitive diffusion. So that's the exercise I want you to practice between now and the next class. Okay, so I'd like to shift gears and go into our practice part of the class. We're going to be noticing thoughts today. We're going to do an exercise, and we want to remember ACE. We want to remember that we're going to start out this exercise by acknowledging what's in the body, acknowledging all the thoughts and feelings, coming back into the body and grounding. And then we're going to shift to engaging in the exercise, and in this case, it's going to be noticing thoughts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to sit upright, find a comfortable position. And I'm going to start, as always, the exercise with the bell. And then I'm going to transition to our compassion exercise during this exercise. So you'll notice that kind of halfway through, I'm going to be ringing the bell again as a transition. Okay, so we're going to start off by ringing the bell. So get comfortable, sit upright, here we go. Okay, so taking a moment to settle in, noticing how you're sitting or lying down, and just taking a moment to acknowledge where you are on the ladder, just noticing any body sensations, noticing if you're having racing thoughts or if your thoughts are slow. And then scanning the body from the top of your head, scanning all the way through, just noticing any sensations in the body. Notice if there's tension in the jaw or in the shoulders. Notice how you're breathing, if it's slow or fast. Going all the way down to the bottom of your feet and then pushing your feet into the ground and kind of grounding your feet, feeling your bottom in the chair or noticing your body sinking into the bed if you're lying down. Just noticing the body. And then we're going to shift our awareness to the engaging part of this exercise, to noticing the thoughts in the mind. Just noticing. Noticing if you're having a lot of thoughts, if this class today got your mind really geared up. Maybe you're thinking all sorts of different thoughts or trying to process what you just heard. Seeing if you can tune in and notice that. And perhaps noticing that you become distracted. I just heard a car beeping, and I noticed how that pulled my mind away. Seeing if you're becoming distracted, whether it be by sounds or body sensations. And then coming back to the thoughts, just noticing the thoughts. And then to really engage with these thoughts, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be labeling them. So you might just notice if these thoughts are in the past, for example, if you're having thoughts about the past. Or maybe you're having thoughts about the future. Seeing if you can just label each time a thought comes up as past, past, or future, future. And then allowing the thought to just pass on by, to just kind of let it fade away. And you might notice that some thoughts are sticky, and then just taking note of that. And you might even label that as sticky thought, sticky thought. And each time the mind wanders, seeing if you can bring it back to naming, noticing and naming the thoughts, past, past, future, future, sticky thought, sticky thought. And you may, from time to time, need to ground yourself in the body, whether that be in the breath or in the feet or even in the hands. Just noticing if the thoughts become too much and kind of grounding yourself. So noticing how you can shift your awareness from the body to the thoughts. And each time you wander away, get lost on a thought train, just coming back to noticing and naming past, past, future, future, sticky thought, sticky thought. And you may notice that your mind wanders a lot, and remembering this is completely normal and not an indication that you're doing anything wrong. Your mind is like a train. It produces thoughts that keep chugging along. And all you need to do is just simply notice whenever you can, past, past, future, future, sticky thought, sticky thought. And now I'm going to ring the bell and we're going to shift gears for a moment back to the body, back to noticing your feet. And we're going to ground ourselves with the feet as we shift to our compassion portion of the exercise. And now pushing your feet on the ground, noticing the body. And today we're just going to send some compassion to all the essential workers out there working hard to keep us safe, working hard to get our groceries and our medications, and our doctors and nurses and healthcare providers, and all the essential people who are driving trucks to get the goods delivered and flying airplanes to get the masks and the equipment, And just noticing that we can send some compassion to these people. So I'm going to be stating the statements, and you can repeat them in your mind or simply listen and notice what happens as you hear them. May all the essential workers of the world be safe and protected. May all the essential workers of the world be healthy and strong. May all the essential workers of the world live with ease and with kindness in this world. In a moment, you'll hear the sound of the bell, seeing if you can stay with the sound until you no longer hear it. And then when you're ready, you may open your eyes. So just a reminder to remember to focus on what you can control. And if you're a non-essential worker, please stay home. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you the next time. Bye.